I have with me Shanna Fuld, and I'm Ayan Hoffman, Executive Editor at ILTV, and I welcome you back to the ILTV News Podcast. And welcome to you, Shanna.
Thank you for having me today.
So, Shanna, I want to take you back to something that just happened very recently to you. You had a direct hit or destruction of your apartment building in Tel Aviv. When did it happen? Why did it happen? Tell me the story.
So it happened on Sunday night going into Monday morning. It was technically already Monday. And it happened around 4 o'clock in the morning. Why did it happen? Is a big existential question, but it's an Iranian ballistic missile. And I actually want to just spend a second talking about ballistic missiles because they are packed full of explosives. And it made a huge impact on Tel Aviv. And the missile dropped and hit just outside my window.
Oh, wow.
So the apartment building shook and swayed, and I was working because I'm a journalist, and I had been working all night, and Saturday evening into Sunday was go time for me because the Iranian attacks really began on a Friday evening, and I'm a Sabbath observing Jew, so I didn't really kick into high gear until Saturday night. And by Sunday afternoon, I was already covering the Bat Yam missile strike and had been spending the afternoon there, which meant that my coverage was skewed late into the evening. I put together a really extensive podcast. I worked all night editing it. I hit the publish button around 3:50, and that's when I sat on my bed for the first time in several days and kind of let my guard down, and I decided to take I had hiking boots on because I knew that I had been going into a destruction zone. I took my boots off, I took my cargo pants off, and I started to put pajamas on. And you could say caught with your pants down. I was quite literally caught with my pants down. The siren started to ring. I threw pajamas on. I threw sandals on instead of my hiking boots. And I mention that because I had just told listeners and viewers of the Israel Daily News podcast that the Israel police was recommending that you enter the bomb shelter or the safe room with closed-toed shoes. And I had just finished reporting that. And I knew that I didn't have enough time to get closed-toed shoes on because I needed to run upstairs to my neighbor's mamad, which is the safe room. And I didn't have enough time or patience to start putting the socks and lacing up the boots. So I threw on my sandals, and unfortunately, Mayan, everything that the Israel police told me to tell others, I had become a victim of. And the instruction was expect that you're going to have to rely on family and friends to provide you clothing, which sounded crazy, but it became my immediate reality. I'm not wearing any of my own clothes right now, zero. I also needed to leave the mamad, and we'll get to that story, but I needed to leave the mamad with my sandals on. I had to walk over glass and risk my feet. So I ended up searching in my neighbor's apartment to find a sock or a thin slipper, and I actually put it on my feet and strapped my sandals around it because I knew that I was going to be exiting a completely broken, window shattered, glass shattered building. So that was my Monday morning around 5 a.m. The ordeal took place between 4 and 5:30 a.m. and I had to be rescued out of the mamad.
And you obviously heard the siren first, which is what sent you up to the mamad. But how much time did you actually have to react when you talk about having to move so quickly? And how did you decide what yes to do that they taught you and what not to do in those few seconds?
So we actually had an issue which I think has changed the trajectory of the way that the alarm system is running in this country, and I'm saying that from my personal perspective and point of view. not from and not because I'm an authority figure, but what the government was trying to do, or the Home Front Command was trying to do, was to give people a really ample amount of warning time. And so we're getting these messages that say, be prepared, that say, stay near your shelter. Now, what is near your shelter? For me, near my shelter was in my apartment, near 5 floors down from the shelter. That was near for me. And so, after sitting in my upstairs neighbor for about an hour waiting for a missile, I decided to go back into my own apartment and finish my edit on my podcast. And I did that. However, then we got another alarm, and that alarm lets you know that you are, in fact, going to receive a missile. They are on the way, and I think I had 5 minutes, maybe 8 minutes, something like that, to get upstairs. But those 5 minutes went by very quickly. How did I decide? I really truly had a very internal urge and intuition that said, don't try to do anything extra, just get into the mamad. That's why I didn't put on the hiking boots. That's why I didn't put on the cargo pants. That's why I risked going upstairs with my open-toed sandals. I just had a very deep and strong intuition that I needed to run up the stairs. I ran up the stairs to the neighbor's apartment, which, by the way, I'm not taking the elevator at this time either, because I just feel very unsafe to be trapped by an elevator. So I've been avoiding elevators in general in Israel lately. Even if it's a long walk, because I don't want a missile to strike while I'm in an elevator. So I ran up the stairs, got into the neighbor's apartment, and I noticed that I was the one that had the most urgency. I felt that I had the most urgency, and there were a few women upstairs. One was a visitor. She was a young woman. I'm going to say somewhere between 16 and 20, from Paris. And there was two women who are friends that were staying together. So the four of us entered the mamad and closed the door.
Now, what did it feel like when the rocket itself hit outside that window? Describe to me the feeling as you're sitting in the mamad. Did you know that it was that close?
So I want to share that a lot of things in this day were very intuitive for me, and I could feel them. And I think it's so important for us as humans to realize that we're animals in a way, and we can sense danger and we can feel things. And I felt that there was danger and I could feel the rocket whiz by the apartment. I heard the whipping and I felt the power. I don't know how else to describe, but the power of the missile coming down outside. I heard the wind whipping, and then we heard a boom that was the loudest boom that I have heard since this ordeal began on Friday evening. And that boom was so loud, the building swayed and came back into place. And I trusted that I had to have a deep sense of faith and trust that the building was going to move back into its spot, because I know that a lot of buildings, especially ones that have been recently reinforced or that have been earthquake proofed, which there's a lot of buildings in this country. I believe the cutoff is 2004 or 2005. Anything that has been reconstructed since then, and my building is a lot older than that, but I believe, if the information I got is true, that the building was earthquake reinforced. And I'm pretty sure that that saved our lives, because I felt the Mayan, are we together?
Yeah, yeah, we're together. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I can't see you. I couldn't see you anymore.
Ah,
Um, I felt the, there we are. Thank you. I felt the building sway and come back into its place. And I just prayed and understood. I actually thought that there was a chance that our building itself had been struck. or the building next door or a place next door. And I was absolutely correct. The missile touched down right outside of the building, just meters away. I'm talking about maybe a half a block. And I I could feel it. But I do want to say I stayed so calm and centered during this time, and I was telling the other women that we were with that they had to be quiet so that we could listen. And I say this because I want everyone to really understand we have five senses, and we have five senses for a reason. And we need to lean into our senses, and any information you can get is good information when you're working on survival. So I was asking the women that I was with if we could listen, and I was listening to hear what was happening outside. We got an all clear from the from the home front command saying that it was safe for us to leave. No one that was with me felt that it was really safe enough for us to leave. I think we had all understood that something had happened near us. And so we waited. And would you like me to continue the story of what happened next?
Yeah, yeah, please keep going.
I we stayed in the safe room despite we were released. And Marisa is the owner of the apartment and the woman that saved my life because she told me I could come up into her mamad. And we've been doing this for about a year and a half that I've been going into her mamad. But I have to say that I've really been sheltering in the staircase much more than I've been sheltering in her mamad. But during the Iranian missile attack, we all understood that these ballistic missiles were way, way more powerful than any rockets that have come in from Gaza or Yemen. And I've been making it my business to get into a protected space. And just earlier in that day, my therapist told me that any person who had entered the mamad had come out alive. That was at that point. That was at that point on early Sunday, and I took that seriously. And so when this missile attack was on the way, I ran upstairs and got myself into that mamad. And by the way, while we were in in the mamad in the safe room, and that boom happened, the handle of the mamad window came off of the window and shot across the room, and the window blew open and I actually got up to close it. So the window blew in, which was very scary. And there was some screaming and there was some praying. And so when this ordeal was over and we got the all clear, my upstairs neighbor Marisa said something. I don't remember what she said, but she said something to the effect of that we were going to go out or that we were going to check in with whoever was in the building or something about the rest of the building. I don't remember what it was. And I said to her, if there is a rest of the building, it might just be us because my vision was almost like a Jetsons futuristic moment where our little safe room was in the air and the rest of the building was a silhouette. That's how I felt. And I wouldn't say that I was totally incorrect because when I got up to open the mamad door, it was very clear. I mean, the things had come down, the ceiling was on the floor, everything was undone. The front door to the apartment was blown in. And so we understood that we couldn't get out of the apartment. And I received a phone call from my boyfriend who had left his mamad the second he was able to, scootered across the city to come to my rescue, and found out downstairs as he was approaching the scene was crazy. There was a man outside with blood all over him. There was glass shattered on the street. There were emergency service officers looking like they did not know where to start. And he actually jumped in and told them there are people inside the building. You've got to get them out. They can't get out. They came up
Mm.
after a few attempts. Yes, that my boyfriend said they're in this apartment. They're on floor 5. You've got to get up there. And they came up and told us that we had to unlock the door, which is funny to me. It was very stressful for the owner of the apartment. And she told them, we tried telling them this isn't a situation that the door is locked. The door has been morphed. It's been disabled. The door
100%.
was just,
Yeah, it sounds
so
like it was just unbelievable. So, Sean,
they
I
had
want
to
to
take a,
go ahead, finish
yeah,
this
they had to
sentence.
cut
Yeah.
us out. They had to cut us out of the apartment, basically.
I can imagine based on what you've described. Now, I know you lost quite a number of items in the attack, personally, obviously, emotionally. Can you walk me through, were there things you'll never be able to replace? What have you lost from this?
So it is still unclear what can be saved and what cannot be saved. I'll tell you that when I first understood the the missile struck outside of my apartment, and I had a one look at my apartment on my way out, I was told by a couple of people not to go looking in on my apartment for my own safety, because sometimes these buildings collapse and you got to get out before the building falls down. But I did, tilt my head to look at my apartment, and the door had been dented in, and it looked like it had been really struck badly. And there was also a smell of fire. So I believe that everything was destroyed. Almost everything was destroyed. There are some things that were so blown to smithereens that I did not see them anymore. A wooden chair, bed sheets. I mean, bags of clothes. There were things that were just kind of vaporized. Um, Everything was damaged. It's still not clear what I'm going to be able to save and what's going to work. For example, my washing machine and my dryer. I haven't tried to use them, so I don't know. The structures are there. The doors were blown open. The soap dispenser was opened. There's soot and dust and construction materials from the walls, drywall. I don't know what's going to be salvaged. I can tell you that my computer, I'm talking to you on it, since October 7th, since I understood that we were in times of war, I've been very cautious to close my computer and put it into a laptop bag. I always zipper it, even if I'm leaving the room for a short time or going next door to buy something at the corner store, because I've had a lot of visions about things in this war. And even going back before October 7th, I had these scary feelings that Hamas was going to enter my personal home. That was a vision that I had, a repeated one. That was before October 7th. And I've had a vision of my window in my living room being blown in and my computer being on the table and being destroyed. So every time I leave my living room for the last year and a half, I've closed it and put it away. And I've also strategically put it behind the couch, which in my mind was going to protect it from the window. So I came in to find later that day, my computer was in the bag. The bag was soaked because a pipe burst. So everything got wet. My clothes are wet. Um, and there was a flood in my apartment as well because of a pipe burst. So the computer bag was wet. My computer was moist, but not full of water because the bag absorbed it, and I was able to recover the computer. I'm talking to you on
That's
it right
amazing.
now.
Incredible. Now, what
Um,
happened though, Shauna, in the immediate hours and days after that? I mean, where did you go and who was able to help you to get to those places?
so I have to say that I really found myself being the director of this event in my life and not really giving myself a moment to think too much. I had to jump into action. That's something I feel strongly about in these scenarios is, yes, it's emotional. Yes, there's a lot of turmoil, but obviously when something happens like this, you are really the mover and the shaker. You're the one that's going to tell people what to do. So I just decided that I needed to remain clear minded. What I did was first gave my boyfriend a hug, a big hug outside. There were some TV crews that wanted to speak to me. And for the first time, I found myself on the other side and really hope that I can be more compassionate in the future when I need to talk to victims, because of how sensitive I felt about the way that I looked or the fact that I was in my pajamas. And um, so we took a minute to deal with some of the press that wanted to speak to me, and of course some of them were colleagues. So there was a line, are these people coming to me because they're my friends? Are they coming to me because they want the story? Probably both. We walked to a friend. We just walked away from the scene after asking a couple questions. We were given an address of where we could make arrangements, and a tent was set up there just a couple hours later so that people could make reservations for accommodation and hotel. And I'm speaking to you now from a hotel. So we made a little bit of some stops to our friends locally. We went to a friend's home where we used the bathroom. We had a drink of water. We sat down, and then moved on to my one of my closest friends here in Israel, and went to her. She has a newborn baby, and I just thought that maybe being with her and having some breakfast and sitting with the baby would give me comfort, and it did. I ended up. She made me a bag of clothes. She fed me breakfast. We had a hug, and I ended up falling asleep on the floor of her safe room for about an hour or less, which was, I just kind of felt like a child. Like, I went into the safe, I saw she had laid out a little bed for herself so that she could sleep next to her baby. And I laid in it and didn't get up for a while. And I needed that rest because that rest fueled me for the day that I had ahead of me. Mind you, this was around 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning.
But Shanna, now
So
your building
rested.
is complete. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You rested and then, yeah, go ahead.
I rested. I rested. I got up, and we went back to the apartment.
So now you went back to the apartment, I'm assuming, to see what else you could find and you could save. But you mentioned that the building is really completely destroyed. Has there been any indication as to when or how it will be rebuilt, when you might be able to go back there? Did you own your apartment? Were you renting it?
I was renting my apartment, and I'm actually going to check for you right now because information came in as I was jumping on this call today about the state of the apartment. So I will read it to you. The Vad Bayit says, "Hello. According to the photos, there are cracks in the building's exterior, glass from windows, damage to a shared yard. As part of the property tax claim process, we were asked to contact the municipality to schedule an engineer to inspect the situation and document it. After that, we will open a property tax claim for the common areas. We ask that you do not touch broken things, do not repair them until the appraiser arrives."
Wow. So you really can't do much. And anyway, as you said, you were renting it. So I'm assuming there's an owner somewhere who's going to need to be working with you on this process.
Yeah, so yesterday I actually spent almost the entire day filling out paperwork
Wow.
with the city of Tel Aviv. I have to say that I'm so glad that my friends urged me to accept the hotel accommodation, which I did not want to do at first because I felt that I had enough friends that could host me, that I didn't want to take the spot away from somebody else who might need it. And it took me a while to realize that I actually am a victim of what's going on. And being here has been such a supportive environment, and there have been a lot of people here who've been helping me, and there's been 3 meals a day, and I just can't tell you how helpful it is to have somebody take care of some of that stuff, to have a room that's my own to sleep in, and to have some quiet time and not need to speak to anyone. I've been fielding a lot of phone calls. So the accommodation has been very, very important. And also feeling, a bus just went by and I heard a loud noise just now and it got me scared. And just knowing that I'm in a place and I'm not by myself has been really helpful for me.
100%. Now, I want to take you to the mental and emotional side. I mean, you started to touch on that right now, but obviously, at some point, you recognize that you are a victim of this war. So, how do you deal with that trauma?
I am dealing with that trauma through a lot of genuine appreciation, gratefulness, and positivity. And I know that that sounds so silly and fake, but there have been so many little nuggets along the way of things that happened that I was so grateful for. Even recovering my laptop, even having a moment with my therapist where she informed me that people that got into the mamad were protected. Those little things saved my life and gave me hope. And the people that have helped me and the community coming together to bring me clothing, to offer to help me clean up, to even send money, even give me cash so that I can go and sit outside and have a coffee that I didn't pay for, has really just put things into perspective for me. And I'm dealing with the trauma by just focusing on how grateful I am to be alive, and how I would have been killed in an instant had I been in my apartment. I
Wow.
would have been totally decimated. I mean, the floor is on the ceiling in my apartment. There's a gaping hole between my apartment and the apartment next to me, and that wall in particular is made out of cement. So I just don't know what would have happened to me, and I'm dealing with it by honestly eating and making sure that I'm grounded and taking things step by step, but also being very active in pulling things back together. And I think being a little gentle with myself on getting work done, because as I'm sure you know, I'm a workhorse. I love to work. My work is my life. And this is really my time to shine as a journalist. But I've understood that I need to put that on hold for some time until I can get myself rehabilitated.
100%. And I do want to ask you just one more question, actually related to your work. You are a journalist and you report for a while already now out of Israel. How do you feel when international media, though, is describing this more as a tit for tat or making it look like what's happening, with Iran and Israel, that we're kind of one and the same?
I respond to it in the same way that I respond to a lot of things, which is that there's two options here. I'm going to be very, very honest about how I see these two options, and there's probably going to be a lot of people that don't like what I have to say about this. There's two options. One option is that the international community doesn't deal with the threat that the state of Israel deals with, and they can't fathom how it's possible that Iran could want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And we understand that because we have been dealing with the tentacles of Iran through missiles from Yemen, through missiles from Gaza, through misinformation and disinformation campaigns that are funded by Iran. So, this is the one reality that Israel deals with. And I look at it and I say, I understand what's going on. People that are informed understand what's going on. And a lot of people in the West who don't deal with existential threats and don't really understand the consequences of radical Islam, they don't get it. And they call it tit for tat because they've lived and grown up in a society where there's no even concept that one faith or one people would want to destroy another faith or another people. The USA, the United States of America, where I'm from, I'm a New Yorker. We stand for liberty and justice for all. We stand for diversity. We believe that every person has the same right to live, and that every person is allowed to have the same rights. And honestly, Mayan, that's a radical new idea that only existed since really the 1700s, since the founding of the state of since the founding of the United States of America, which mirrors a concept which it comes from the Bible, which is the biblical homeland of the Jewish people. So that's why these two countries have the same value. That's one idea which I
And
believe
and
in.
we're going to run out of
Another idea.
time, Shauna. So I do want to
Okay.
stop you, even though I think this is very important. But I want you to have really in 30 seconds and no more to just leave a message for the people. Our viewers are all around the world, predominantly in North America, where you said that you're from. Tell them what can they do right now to support the state of Israel. No more than 30 seconds, please.
To support the state of Israel, you need to share the information that is true using facts, leave the emotion to the side. People can't really seem to deal with the emotion. Facts, numbers, and statistics will really put things in perspective and make things clear.
Shanna Fuld, thank you so much. We wish you just health. That we hope that you will have a speedy, recovery to your apartment, that you will find the tools and the support that you need to be able to make it through the rest of this war. And for sharing your story with us, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayan.